When I was 7 years old, my best friend Naz and I decided to recreate a WWE match. Now, this was frowned upon as little girls, but in our families, we were considered the hotheads, so it was quite fitting. Now, we were in the basement of my aunt's house. She pushed, I pulled, we had our siblings jump in. She got the last move in where she pushed me a little too rough, and I landed on my leg a little incorrectly. Now, I rushed upstairs to my mother, and I cried in her lap, saying that my best friend had hurt me. She told me to put some ice on it, and that I was going to be okay. However, concern started to grow as we went to the doctor the next day, and he let us know that there was a chip in my ankle. Now, my mother was concerned and terrified of what this meant. He gave her the prescription and said to go to the pharmacist. When we did that, what he handed over to her was crutches. To her horrific view was actually just like wheelchair in her mind, but what was more horrific to her was the bill that came with it. She looked at it, then she looked at me, and she said, "If it's not broken glasses, it's a broken bone. What am I going to do with you?" I looked down and I felt so sad that I had disappointed my mother once again. Now she opened up her bag and she muttered under her breath, rummaging through her purse. She opened up her wallet and started counting the coins and the cash and started to put it on the counter. I felt so ashamed of myself. She handed it to the man and he gave her change back, to which I looked up and said, "Oh, look, Mom, he gave you money back. Everything's fine." All she could do was sigh. Now, spring break was coming up, and now it sort of threw a damper in our plans, but I knew that there was a wedding coming, and I was super excited to see my friends, especially with these two new things that I had. We got to the wedding, and my friends, as I thought, were in awe, came up to me asking me, "What happened? This is so cool. How does it feel?" I loved the attention. As we walked down the corridor, we just hear a complete hush. Everyone is staring at us. My mother is quickly telling me to hurry. I look up at her, and she's glancing at everyone, doing small waves, saying hi, but telling me to urgently hurry as I hobbled with my crutches behind her. We sat into my seat, and I thought it would be a quick hello to everyone, and I could just go off and hang out with my friends. But my mother told me to stay put. She grabbed my hand, she told me to sit down. Everyone started to gather over and said, "How did this happen? Did you know? Like when did this happen?" And just completely overwhelming my mother. She said, it's fine. She went up an octave, trying to really tell everyone that everything was fine, and all I wanted to do was hang out with my friends. Every time I got up, she held me down. I was miserable. Now, I tell this story as a joke to explain the dynamic between my mother and I, but as the weeks go by in this program, I learn a lot about myself. I learn about empathy, I learn about perspective, I learn about being kind and patient. And I started to really examine this story again, and I said, is this story funny, or am I hiding my feelings from something deeper? As the weeks go by into the summer, I do a big transitional move away from home. I start to really unpack some trauma and therapy, and I start to really see that maybe these things that I'm learning could be applied in this story. I think that a perspective needs to be made in like how the 7-year-old actually felt in the moment. I started to see that in my mom's efforts of trying to be both parents, trying to make sure that I am completely taken care of and just in perfect condition, she was emotionally harming me. I was not getting the love that I needed in those moments of when I had a broken leg. I was the product of a traditional, strict, well-behaved mother, and I was just a hothead. As the weeks go by, I start to really see that the story starts to change. But the more I sit with it, I realize that I didn't have the love back then, but what I needed to do in these moments to really move on was to forgive. And with forgiveness, I started to see my mother as she started to panic and really see if she could afford to buy me these crutches. I started to feel her anxiety as we walked down the corridor and everyone judging her on like she was a good mother. I started to empathize with her, and then I started to empathize with myself and started to realize that I had to have the capacity to make my mom the person that did that, but also the person that loved me. And with that, and with forgiving her, I started to really be able to fill that void of what lacked of love, but now with self-love.